Okay, that's magic. I can tell you right now. Woo! Yeah. I don't want to say anything. I just want to go sit back down and have him play it again, right? I met a man several weeks ago, and he was introduced to me, and then his name immediately left my consciousness. A couple of weeks later, I met him again, told me his name, and it flew out. But I heard Terry. So I wanted, every time I saw him, I'd be like, I wouldn't say his name because I knew it wasn't Terry, but I wanted to call him Terry. So the last time I met him, I said, I just got to tell you, I know your name's not Terry, but I want to call you Terry. And he goes, well, I just got to tell you, I have 10 siblings, and the one I'm the closest to is named Terry. So I was like, So when I started to put this message together, I went to Merriam-Webster right after my Oxford dictionary. I go to Merriam-Webster to see what is the definition of magic. Well, Merriam-Webster says, an extraordinary power or influence seemingly from a supernatural source. I was like, well, I don't know that I really like that definition. So let's see what Oxford had to say. And Oxford said, the secret power of appearing to make impossible things happen by saying special words or doing special things. I was like, well, okay, maybe not. And then I found this. What is magic? What does magic do? Why do people believe in magic in the face of experience? However, without belief, the supernatural aspect of magic becomes moot. Magic is based on a unique type of consciousness, the awareness of the interrelatedness of all things in the world by means of a simple yet refined sense of perception. This awareness can be called magical consciousness, or less ambiguously, the magical experience. Magic depends on the subtle forms of nonverbal communication that skilled or intuitive individuals read like an open book. Magic is creating the context in which minds enter into a relationship. And that was perfect for me. The other thing in the article said that intuitive people or practitioners really don't question where that essence comes from. It's not important for them to label that. They know it. It's a part of them. So, if I look at belief, right? I believe that this podium is here because I believe the podium is here. I believe that it's solid, and it is solid because I believe it is solid. But in the world of quantum physics and mechanics, this podium is not solid. It is simply energy. And if I really believed it, I could put my hand through it. Well, now, I have tried this. It didn't work out well. I'm just going to say that. But I keep trying it, right? I know that Andrea, is that correct? Andra. I know that she is mass because I see her as mass. However, if I could stand in the other world, I would know that she is not solid, that she is pure energy. Magic. You might go home and try that with your kids later on, see how that works. So I want to talk about Jesus. You know, that guy that lived a long time ago, the miracle worker. And I thought about miracles and magic. Are they similar? Are they different? If I look at my definition of magic, I would say that Jesus understood the interrelatedness of the other to himself. And then he believed that he could heal, and the receiver believed that they could be healed. That's pretty magical when I think about it, which means that each of us has this possibility embedded in us. Because before we were verbal, we were essence. We didn't have these constructs around us. Constructs were placed on us, kind of like in the readings. If we live in the world of imagination, anything is possible. If we believe in the magic in ourselves, anything is possible. When I did and I'm going to use this word because I love it, the epistemology of the word magic. I just love sounding so educated, but I really had to say it like 3 or 4 times before I could get it out right. But where did it come from? Well, magic, the term magic and magical is connected to evil and curses and I wonder if that's not intentional to keep us away from it. Like there isn't the power structure that knows if we all knew how magical we were, we could transform the world into a source of goodness and wholeness and health. So they did this experiment around Washington, D.C. many years ago. They got a community of Buddhist monks to circle the city, and they held the intention of peace and harmony, and crime in the city decreased significantly during that period. Less police calls, less violence on the street. I think it's possible. I think anything is possible. And so I've had a very long summer of saying goodbye to people. Don Mativia, a friend of this congregation, was shocking. I was so angry at him for like weeks. My mother died, but she was 100. But still, as much as we knew it was going to happen, it happened. And then her letter to us was, leave me alone, don't come and see me, bury me in the ground, cremate. I was like, oh, that's my mother, yeah. Mm-hmm. No magic there, I'm gonna tell you right now. And then my friend John Sullivan died a couple of weeks ago. Suzanne Hoban's husband, riding his bike, had a heart attack at 61. That was crushing. And then just last week, another friend of mine has entered Journey Care and died on Friday. Each one of those carved a hole in my circle of friends. That hole will be there for a while. It'll languish, as it should, because I loved them. And that part of that memory is with me in my long saying goodbye. Each one leaving a trail of tears behind and a loss. And so I'm fully aware that while my circle shrinks, it expands on another plane, in another dimension. I believe this. I believe that each one of my friends have left and returned to me, just in a different way. And if I can be curious enough, if I can be open enough, at some point, I will feel them. I absolutely believe that. And because I do, it will happen. I'm assured of that. I know that energy is all around me. Einstein says atoms never die. So I'm a chaplain, along with Mariella, which is so lovely to me to follow chaplain. And when I would be in rooms where there would be a lot of angst and anger at the death scene, I would move aside. I don't want those atoms connecting to me, man. Go connect to someone else. But they're there, the essence of creation. Nothing is wasted in the arc of creation. Everything is used. That's magical to me. To understand that, to really know it and believe it. It also reminds me to take off the shroud of mourning and put on the shroud of loving, and to be wrapped in that and carry forward that which brought me joy in those relationships, tugging me back into the world of the living over and over and over. So I'm going to tell you this story, and you make of it what you want. This is what happened for me. Several years ago, the husband of a very dear friend of mine went in for a simple procedure. They were childhood sweethearts, loved each other, got married right after high school, stayed together, had 4 kids. Bill went in for a simple procedure and was dead 3 days later. Susan was so shattered. She didn't leave the house for a year. Mourned and mourned him. To the point where, some of us were like, I don't know, what should we do? What do we do here? She couldn't talk. She wandered around this big house that he had remodeled. His imprint was everywhere in the house. It got so that those of us who were close to her actually didn't want to go because it was so burdensome. But we loved her. So we would show up with food, stayed with her overnight. So one day I'm at my front door, and I want to tell you that she's a woman of faith. She was a woman of strong faith, and she was so shattered, so angry at God for doing this to her. And there was really nothing any of us could say to change that. And I figured, God's big, they can take it, it's not personal. So one day I'm at my front door, I put the key in the door, turn the key, and I hear this. Call Susan, tell her I'm okay. And I'm like, okay, whatever. That's, probably part of my brain that wants Susan to be okay. I go in the house, I ignore it. And then I'm in bed dreaming one night, and I'm at a basketball game, which I never attend. I'm not a sports person. I'm sitting on bleachers, which I would never sit on. They're so bad for your body. And Bill comes up and yells at me, Lou, call Susan. Tell her I was really angry this past year. I was not ready to die, but I'm okay. Everything's okay now. She can move on. And I wake up and I'm like, if I don't do something, he's not going to leave me alone. He will plague me everywhere I go. But then, how do you tell your friend and say, your dead husband came to me several times in a dream, and here's what he said to me? Because I don't want to look stupid, oh, there's Lou off on one of her tangents again, Okay, so I talked to Mary Beth, my partner, and she says you should call her, you should tell her. So I call her, and I say, let's have coffee. I never call her. She goes, what do you want to have coffee for? I'm like, let's just have coffee. I want to talk to you. What do you want? What do you want to talk about? Fine. So I tell her, Bill came to me. Here's what he said, and here's what he wants you to know. She burst into tears, and she starts weeping, and she says, thank you. I've been waiting for a sign. Next morning, she shows up at my door with all the ingredients, makes Belgian waffles for everybody, and puts her house on the market the next week. And I was like, this is what happens when you don't pay attention. So what happens for us when we have those sendings, right? Or we have those moments, we label them weird. Oh, that was weird. Oh, that was crazy. No, I don't do that. I say, oh, that's magic. 2 weeks before John Sullivan died, he was in my mind every day. Every day he was with me. Every day. Now, there's nothing I could do to stop that or change that, correct? But I did send energy their way. I don't discount that anymore. Magic is all around us. We see it in the turning of the seasons, when the crocuses peek through the snow, when something happens to us that fills us with such joy, when we meet someone and we feel that instant connection, we're connected to each other. I encourage you to honor those moments. Don't put them aside. Embrace that. And be curious how magic lives in your life. What does the magical experience mean to you? Now, the callings that I did, the calling of the circle, I belong to a circle of women, and we cast circles. And we hold ourselves in this magical space. We read, we chant, we honor each other. There are young women, and there are, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. A lot of us, crones. We share wisdom with each other. We mentor women becoming mothers in we share our magical experience with each other. And when I sit in that space, I swear nothing in the world can touch us. We unite our energy in service to goodness and wholeness because the world is hungry for that today. Magic isn't. I suppose we could use our magic for evil just like we can use our actions for evil, that we could do harm with it. We choose no. We choose a different way to be. I have to tell you, sometimes I wonder if I'm, going over the edge. So, I figure someday I will go right over the edge. I'll die just like everything dies. It's the way of life. And then I'll transform into the next level of being. My essence will stay. The person I was called to be will remain with those who care enough about me to hold me in memory. I do want to be composted in my backyard, but I think that's illegal in Woodstock, so that's probably not going to happen. But maybe, Susan, out on your farm, you could just dig a big hole and throw me in. And do these messages come through me because I'm open, because I'm willing to receive, because I don't let them scare me anymore? You talked about children. My granddaughter, when she was young, has a third eye. That's an intuition that some of you equate that with witchcraft. It's not. It's an intuition. And when my aunt died, my mother's sister, we went to Pennsylvania for the funeral. My mother did not like my aunt. They did not get along. My aunt was just a mean Italian, edgy woman. And so I say to Madison at the wake, now, these kids today don't go to a lot of wakes, but we grew up going to wakes. So watching people kiss the corpse was just not a big deal for us. Italians, we kiss everything. So there's my uncle kissing my aunt, and Madison is like, ew, she's kissing a dead person. And so later I said to her, hey, did you notice anything? And she goes, oh yeah, Aunt Cokie is really angry that she died first before my mother. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, she was in the back. I'm like, oh. Now this was before I was really enlightened. And so I was like, and she talked about it like you and I are talking right now. So I tell my mother, and my mother's like, oh yeah, that's just like her. Madison got to a certain age, had terrible, terrible headaches, and cut herself off from her intuition. Now she's 28. She's only just beginning to think about maybe, because it freaked her out. That would freak you out, right? Magic is elusive, scary, wonderful, all of it. I think what happened for Jesus, this magical moment we had when people who wanted power took over the whole Christian paradigm, made it bad. Like only certain people could work miracles, or the dead saint had to. We can all work miracles and bring magic into our lives. All of us. It's about having the desire to see things through that filter as whole and good, no matter what it is. Now, I really feel strongly about putting these ideas into the world today, because the next couple of years are going to be challenging for us, all of us who really value individual freedom, the many voices at the table, the resisting institutional pressure, the loud voices out there, right? Like holding on to our essence is so important. Knowing who we are in our humanity is so critical today. It's important to speak contrary, not in confrontation, but contrary to the messages we hear. They can't be in, they have to be out. I have to legislate this part of your life because you don't know what's good for you. We can't let immigrants in because you can't do this. We can't talk about this. You can't read these books because we know what's better for you. That's not magic. That's oppression. Magic is the balance to that. And here's the great thing about it. We don't really have to organize. We don't have to have the society of magical human beings. We can do this on our own, individually, one at a time, one person at a time. Every time you resist that which harms, you create the possibility of that which helps and heals. That is magical. I get to say my interrelatedness to you and to you and to you and to you. We are connected. That's magical. So while I know it's important, we need our planners and we need our detail people. Lord knows we need those. I need those. Anybody want the job in my life? I'm willing to hire somebody. Too much structure reduces curiosity. The willingness to know keeps us from taking that leap into the wilderness where the wild things are, where magical things can happen. Find your own balance in that. Don't give it up completely, but find a way to hold them both. Not in a way that constricts you, but in a way that creates a container for you to live in, so that if something does kind of go a little bluey, you have a place to fall back into. It's a both and. Let's do both and. So I've been taking music voice lessons to prepare because I'm launching my 2024 campaign, and I'm going to be singing with my former husband. Well, that's magical, let me tell you. Okay, that's going to require a lot of magical essence on my part. It's actually going fairly well. That's a miracle. But there were a few moments when I was like, oh, yeah, there's the guy divorced. Oh, yeah, I remember you. You're right there. But we're actually getting along very, very well. And so we're going to play together on September 10th at Stage Left. And while I'm taking these voice lessons, Cassandra is teaching me about the conduit. And she is teaching me about how to use my throat and my diaphragm and all those wonderful singing places that I sang and didn't know about. And what she doesn't realize is that she's teaching me about the conduit of magic, how it flows through my body, inside and out. And when it happens, like I feel myself light up. It's so remarkable. So I invite you, all of you, especially those that resist this kind of idea, to open up, ignite the magic in your life, and see what happens when it comes out of your mouth. Be prepared to be surprised. Feel it, embrace it, enjoy it. Light up the world with me. Let's agree to do that. Blessed be.